permission to speak. Shadows hide you. I am listening. Our paths converge.
So good to see you.
Hail to you. Never lose hope.
Here for a chat.
I hear you. It has only begun. Fight on, friend.
Welcome to episode 481 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. It is Thursday, January 23rd, 2025, in the evening. Coming to you from Nomergan, Ohio, it's me, Edelweiss. From Northrend, Massachusetts, we have Wicked Good.
Hi.
From Teldrassil, California, we have Megasa.
Hello.
And from all around the world, we have you, dear listeners. This week's episode is brought to you by our producers, Number Theory, Crash, Beef Squatch, David P., Walu, Jeremy T., Bottlecaps, Grumpy Monk, The Burger Club, Kirk Regan, Grizzly Bear, May, SSJ5 Goku, and our newest producer, I think it's Naikiwi?
I think they had said it was an NY Kiwi.
Okay, NY Kiwi, like New York Kiwi. And by our patrons of the week, B.W. Worcester and Calum CV. You can go to patreon.com/coinconcede to get perks like a thank you at the top of the show, early access to new episodes, one-on-one coaching sessions, and help support the show in the process. If you'd like to support the show but cannot do so monetarily, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your podcast feed of choice, as it always helps other people find the show. So, Life Ladder, Hearthcraft, it's here! we got the StarCraft mini set, and I think I have not engaged this deeply with the game in quite a while. I think since before I started really getting into D&D stuff. I don't know if that's 1 or 2 sets ago, but
It was probably around the same time that I started getting into Commander, and that was like 2 sets ago. Because I think that was you and I were kind of on parallel tracks. In that way, and I haven't been brought back in as hard, mainly just because I've been getting my butt kicked by work the last couple of days, so I haven't really been able to play well, but I have been playing a lot more. Like I fired up the client at lunch today, which is something that I have not done in a while. So yeah, well, I mean, the Zerg decks are pretty easy to play on the phone.
That's true.
So I see Infestor, I take Infestor. It's fine. But yeah, no, I feel the same way. I feel like this has been, aside from a couple of hiccups that we'll talk about, I think that they really did do a good job with the set.
Yeah,
I have been. This week was like when everything really started up. My private tutoring started up. My grad school class started up, and I'm sitting here going, I am going to have to do a lot of catch up on my grad school class tomorrow because since Tuesday, it's just been Hearthcraft. So
I really want to get, because I didn't know this existed, the StarCraft remastered cartoon.
Oh yeah, I have that. I got that after BlizzCon 2019, I think. It is very cute.
Oh man. And like,
it's not expensive either.
I know. I just we're kind of like taking account of all our finances and stuff. So tighten up the belt at exactly the wrong moment, right? Because they released all this sweet stuff that we'll get into in the news, cosmetics wise, and it is steep, but it is alluring, and that's been tough to resist. But in terms of like playing the game, I think some things are definitely weaker than I would like. I lost a lot of games with Paladin. Maybe this Glory deck that I've just been turned on to by you two will save me there. But it certainly feels like all the factions have ways to play, but not all of the classes in those factions have been treated equally.
Yeah, that's fair. Though some of the classes that are on the short end, good. Like, I'm not sad that Druid doesn't have a great Protoss deck. I think that's fine. I'm good. I'm okay with that. Same thing with Rogue. I guess we'll talk about that too, because, okay, so added a list to troll me, but in general, I haven't seen very many Rogues the last couple of days, which has been good. So
Yeah, there is weapon rogue is a thing, unfortunately, but it is counterable and being countered.
And that's not really enabled by the mini set. That's more of like it's more enabled by the decks that are enabled by the mini set, and then that's just people who just do not want anyone to have fun, including themselves.
Or, in fairness, or don't have new cards, right? Decided not to get the mini set or whatever, free to play. I could see if you were free to play in top 1 or 2K right now, it would be the thing to play is Weapon Rogue.
I did face one just shortly before the show, and they used one of their silences and one of their dubious purchases on things that were not taunts, and I'm like, oh, you really want to do that? Well, I've been spacing my taunts. I've been waiting till you do that. So I was able to beat them, although if it'd been another turn or two, I wouldn't have. But it can be difficult if you are building a collection when the meta change. Like when the meta changes this abruptly, it can be really, really fun. It can also be destabilizing for some players. Like my husband is just like, what do I do? So I'm like, all right, we will figure out this weekend what it. I was like, don't craft anything right this second. Right, don't
StarCraft anything.
Yeah. You can go between kind of his 2 decks and see what works, or like make like little tech card changes. But I'm like, let's like take stock this weekend and see what's going on.
Do not construct any additional pylons.
No. He did actually get the mini set, but he doesn't have a lot of the other cards to craft something new. So
it is a rapidly developing meta. It's like it's finally slowed down, but for a while it was like I was playing something during the day and doing well, and then things totally shifted by the nighttime, and I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, we had this whole conversation where you kept mentioning all these priests, and I'm like, what do you mean? I haven't seen any priests at all. And it was like a 4-hour difference in when we'd been playing.
I mean, some decks just take a little bit longer than others, and there are sometimes some decks that are shall we say prevalent, that then people start looking for ways to counter them, and that also kind of spurs on some innovation. But
yeah, well, I will mention this here because I'm not going to get into this deck in Decksplanations, which we're going to talk about a lot of different decks in Decksplanations.
Oh, yeah.
But as you may have noticed if you've been playing, there is a lot of Zerg Death Knight with Infestor, and so someone who felt very hurt by this came up with a shaman that has 2 copies of Thrall's Grift, 2 actual copies of Hex, because it is actually in the core set, if you didn't realize, 2 copies of Conductivity, Worgen Rhodey, which summons a 0/3 like instrument case for the opponent. Oh, and Tidal Pupil to copy the hexes.
Do they have Triangulate?
And Triangulate to find the hexes.
Yeah.
Well, find and shuffle more.
Yeah.
And there's ETC with Kill Jaden in it in case they need to just fatigue you out. Because basically the idea is they just hex your board so that you have no space and you're board locked. And then they just wait, basically, until they build up a big enough board that they can kill you all at once, or you literally just fatigue to death. And I was extremely salty about this happening to me. I was a Zerg hunter, and that was good enough to be targeted by this. It's if you're like, oh, I must play this. First of all, don't. But second, it's not even good for you because it has like a 40% win rate, because it's like 80% versus Death Knight and 20% or less versus most other things. It's like 50% versus Rogue because it's running Rustrat Viper, and it just loses to everything else.
8% versus Mage. Not that there's a ton of Mage out there, but I mean, that just shows you the degrees of polarization, right? Like, Mage just doesn't run enough minions to care.
Yeah. Oh, you just want to hex my stuff? Okay, enjoy that. Yeah, I mean, I think we don't often get to name archetypes, but I would put forth the motion to name this Poopy Pants Shaman. Because if you're playing that, then you are definitely being a poopy pants. So
look, I understand though.
Oh, me too. Like, I've played decks like that.
I just mean like you face 3 Death Knights in a row that get Death Growl on their infestors, and now you've got 7/7 Zerglings. Like,
yeah,
it does something to you.
This is why cards like Eater of Secrets have been printed. They're not good. They don't do anything, but when you really just want to take out your aggressions on somebody, it will do that for a couple of games. Once you cue into the right one.
I was sitting there like, don't hit the threaten emoji. It'll just make them happy. Like it'll.
I keep reminding you, they're not stuck there with you. You're stuck there with them. So
I absolutely needed to just concede way before I did.
Yeah.
I actually waited until I died, and that was 19 turns. So
I do wonder, like, if it's just like, well, because the infestor decks have gone all in on like reborn stuff and moved away from corpuscle things, this works, or like, are they able to outpace the fact that a corpuscle deck could just corpuscle their own stuff to make board space? Maybe it uses too many corpses to keep it going. I guess it depends like how quickly they're able to make all this repetitive hexing happen.
They're also banking on them not running CNE anymore, which was in some of those lists too, because that's another way to just kind of get that last amount of damage. Because like that shaman didn't seem to have a whole lot of healing in it. It was just depending on you running out of damage. Yeah,
it seems like it is just there to board lock you. SunQ makes a hilarious point. Yeah, if you have Eliza, it just doesn't work anymore, right? Because the frogs have attack. So if they, I mean, it's funny. Certainly, if they made the change that I hope they make to Infestor, then you probably would run maybe Eliza again and not be so heavily focused on all this reborn stuff. But yeah, I wonder if it could be worth running right now. But I don't think the shaman is that prevalent because it folds to everything else.
Yeah,
so.
you just got unlucky to find the person who was really, really like hurt that day and decided to take it out on you.
It was kind of a Ticketus Warlock spread where like Ticketus Warlock, if you really hated priests, you could beat priest, and then otherwise.
The thing is, like, Ticketus, at least, like, you got to do the thing. Like, the thing wasn't good, but you got to burn, like, 5 cards off your opponent's deck, which was enough for some people. This is just, like, sitting there and making things into frogs for 20 turns.
I mean, it is very funny.
It's funny, yes.
It is funny.
I saw the like Worgen instrument whatever thing, and I was like, what is happening? Why are they giving me a 0/3?
That is why. That is actually why. Yeah, I posted quite the rant in the Salt Mine channel, and then Domjat, not unsympathetically, but posted the matchup spread of it because I hadn't actually found it on HS Guru yet. And before I like read it properly, I was just like, yeah, but like any minion deck could have this happen. And then I realized like every minion deck was fine except for like Zerg DK specifically. So I was like, oh, whoops. And he was like, you should just double down. It's the Salt Mine channel.
Like there are ways to play around it, but I think it's one of those things where it's not prevalent enough to like know what's happening. And
I didn't know what was happening.
You can just get got because you don't know. But like the next time you face it, this is why it's like even in the couple other ones where it is above 50%, it's like 56, 57, and that's just if the deck doesn't have a way of killing off its own minions, right? But there's still like ways you can play around it. It's just that the DKs now are so bent on Infestor and giving it Reborn and all this other stuff that I don't think they have ways of killing off their own minions.
But they're also going to probably come around. Like, this is the normal way that these types of decks evolve, is that somebody figures out like a proof of concept, and then the decks go all in on that. And then people like start targeting them. Maybe it's effective, maybe it's not. And then they kind of back off from like the pure heroin version of the deck. And then start cutting it with whatever you cut heroin with to make it less potent. I'm not a druggie. I don't know. and then that's what ends up actually being like the meta deck once they kind of take it a step back and give it a little bit more general survivability, general utility, stuff like that.
Maybe, but like,
or they nerf it.
Conductivity must be in this shaman because of Death Growl.
Yeah.
Like, that is the 1-for-1. You do that, I do this.
Yeah.
But I mean, the DK decks, right? They're very all in on Infestor. Sometimes decks stay that way. Like Shopper DH would be an example of a deck that, like, going all in was correct. But often it's like easier to deck build around going all in on something than like a well-rounded deck in a sense. Like that sometimes comes second, where people realize like, oh, if we make this a little more well-rounded. So I think it's kind of early to tell. It might be that the Infestor deck is like Shopper DH and just like being all in is the correct build, but
it feels like it, yeah.
Like when the effect is powerful enough, it is worth it. And I think that's what we're seeing. The fact that it adds health, and particularly the interaction of static bonus with Reborn, such that they're coming back not at 1 health, but at 1 plus your Infestor triggers, is just really, really gross. And we'll get into more of that.
Yeah. On that note, a quick PSA. If you're playing Horn of the Windlord specifically, you go to attack a minion that's been buffed by Infestor. Let's say that they've had 1 Infestor buff so far in this game. So you attack something. It becomes a 3/3, but by the time you connect with it, it's actually a 4/4 because it still has that +1/+1 buff from the Infestor. It's like a player aura. It just sticks around for the whole game. And if you try to target it again, it'll just go back to being a 4/4, so it still won't die.
That, lock on, equality, any of these health reduction effects like cease to function after Infestor has activated. So we'll get into more Infestor talk in Decksplanations.
So I guess now that you're saying that, maybe the way they fix it is by changing it to say hand deck and battlefield rather than, you know, all your Zerg get +1/+1, because then it only affects like the stuff that's on board and, you know, like actual cards. But
I don't know. I would rather it give +1 attack.
Yeah. Or, you know, your Zerg with charge have +1 attack. They can change it to say that, but
no, not that bad. But like, how much more flavorful is it that a couple of Zerglings are like, if you're doing the same stuff, you summon a couple of 6/1 Zerglings. Like, hey, a Marine still kills them, but gosh, if they get up in there, they can take down really big things.
I don't know. I mean, the Zerglings are never supposed to get big. There's just supposed to be a lot of them. But that's I'm not going to get into that whole flavor argument again. But I have been playing.
Attack makes sense to me. Right? They are very dangerous things, and you got to work within the mechanics of the game you're playing, right? But it's buffing the health that.
I guess I want them to be like Scoot Swarms in Magic, where I can have 2,048 of them on board at any given time, and then that's my win con. But you know,
board space, Wicked.
I know that's what makes me sad is that you can't really live out that fantasy. But that's okay because I'm not playing most. I played a little bit of Zerg. I did pick the Zerg for the event quest because I'm not spending my time trying to earn a rogue portrait. That's not a thing that's happening. So I have been playing some Zerg here and there, but I've been playing a lot of Protoss Priest because it's a priest deck that that's actually playable and I'm enjoying. I've been doing okay with it. I'm still trying to find the right build of it, but what we realized, or I realized after, because we were kind of theory crafting something before the set came out, and we had a build that was maybe halfway there, and I think we were kind of met on hallucination until I played against one and realized that hallucination is not there for the motherships. Hallucination is there for the sentries, because the sentries are what are the fair infestors, I guess, that you know, that's going to hang on. They're saying I'm low on volume. I need to raise myself up again. Hold on. Okay. That's as high as I can go. So otherwise I have to start bringing them down. So like the sentries are kind of like the infestors in that's the thing that you want, as many of those as possible. So, you want to be able to hallucinate those. You want to be able to creation protocol those early. Like, you do want more motherships, but if you don't get enough sentries, you don't get to play enough motherships for that to matter. So it's interesting, but once you get a few of those sentries cooking, like, you can do some disgusting things. And like, I've ended games with Colossus, which I did not expect. I expected Colossus was going to be okay. That's the one that does 1 damage twice for each Protoss spell that you've cast. And you do run a bunch of Protoss spells. And not as many as Mage does, but I've had just generated 2 Colossi. Is it Colossi? Colossus? I don't know. That's one of those words that you don't often have to pluralize. But I've had them go off for like, okay, well, I can just ignore everything that's happening because I can just Colossus for 14 or 16 for successive turns. You're not sticking a board, and by the way, that goes face. And then I don't care if you've played 2 airlock breaches or is it airlock breach? I forget the Demon Hunter, the Death Knight card. Yeah, the 5/5 taunts. That's airlock. Yeah, airlock breach. Like, I don't care that you play 2 of those because I'm just gonna zap your face for 15 every turn, and then good luck. So it's you are running. I'm running double deafen, and we were talking before the show that some people are running Silver Moon Brochure, which is a card that nobody's seen unless you're playing Arena. It is the front. It's one of those cards, the brochures from the Perils in Paradise mini set that we all immediately forgot existed. And the front side of it is 2 mana, buff a minion +2/+2, but the back side of it is silence a minion and give it -2/-2. And that's pretty good.
The front side also gives that minion immune this turn.
Yeah. I'm not good. Like, the front side doesn't matter because it doesn't say silence on it. That's the thing, right? So like,
but I did kill a weapon rogue because they didn't remove my 3/4 charge, and so I went +2/+2 hallucination 15 you.
That's what I've been doing with hallucinate, is just killing people with zealots. But I'll talk about that in Decksplanations.
You brutes are so uncivilized. I swear to God, like, that is not.
It was a weapon rogue. I would have been dead otherwise.
That is not how Artanis intended it. Like, but anyway, so that's
Artanis summons 2 3/4 charges. So
yeah, under duress. Like, it's this. That's just I don't know what to say to you people. Like, like, you go face eventually. You don't go face all at once. That's not the way you do it. But anyway. But I've been enjoying that. I have played some of the Death Knight when I've basically been losing my ranks with Protoss Priest, then gaining them back with the Death Knight, and and also trying to advance the event quest with the Death Knight to get my whatever Zerg skin. I guess it's a Kerrigan skin, right? Whatever that is, but it's not a rogue skin. That's all I care about.
It is a Warlock skin.
That's fine. I'll play Warlock. Yeah.
So they're all like factionified versions of an existing Hearthstone character, I believe. So the Kerrigan one is like a Kerrigan version of Tamsin.
Oh, okay. I didn't even catch that. Probably because the preview was too small. But yeah. But anyway, it's not rogue. That's all I care about. So I just looked at it. I just looked at the class icons. Like, oh, that's rogue. I'm not doing that. Okay, fine.
This is all kind of in news. And then
so we should probably
come back here to exactly what we've been doing, to just vibe about the minis.
Yeah. So why don't we go talk about news, because I actually have notes for that instead of trying to do it from memory. So let's just do that then.
Gadgets and Gazette always gets the scoop.
And we did have a fair bit of news this week. Not all going to be in stuff that you can buy. A fair amount of it is stuff that you can buy, but I guess we can start with the known issues that, and the biggest one, and we've kind of alluded to it, is that if you slept through the first couple of hours, I guess six hours or so of the expansion, you missed Shafar Hunter, which was terrorizing the meta, basically, and then they banned it. temporarily. So yeah, it was basically doubling up with Zerglings. You're getting more Zerglings. You're copying the Zerglings. I don't know what I never really saw what the actual list ended up landing on.
Yeah, so the list that I played, and maybe there was a better one already, but Gabby was going like 90% with this in top 10. So I just took his list. So the idea is you kind of had to know how to keep the chain going, but you get Shafar down, you trigger it while you have one Zergling in your hand. So now the Zergling has +3/+3 and the spell burst. You play the Zergling while you have one other Zergling in your hand through a location or whatever. You also have lots of ways to tutor your minions in this. So you play your Zergling, it copies itself, the copy also has the spell burst. You give the Zergling in your hand +6/+6 and 2 copies of the spell burst. So now it's a 7/7. Except when you play it, it's 2 7/7s. And then they give 4 copies. They give +12/+12 to one in your hand and 4 copies of the spell burst. So then it's a 13/13. But there's 2 of them, and there's 8, and you can see how this happens. And you can also get Huffer through Patchwork Pals if these are not sticking and you just need to hit face. So
honestly, I think it was easier to play than the Shafar Rogue.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and we
the
also
Shafar
have
Rogue, like you could get the buffs on deckhand, and that kind of screwed you up because you needed to get them back onto your doubling minion, and then step the deckhand, and like there was tricky stuff there to get your charge. Whereas this one, you can just like, okay, they're big enough and they've dealt with my board. I guess now I'll transfer all to Huffer and kill them.
You have always a bigger Jormungandr as well.
Yeah,
sure.
Because of course you do. And I think the only way you could really mess it up is like if you got to the point where you had to play Kerrigan and then you had like the larva in hand and the larva turned into something that wasn't a Zergling.
This was doesn't even runner.
You've already, yeah. No, you're not getting to turn 7 anyway. It doesn't matter. So,
the Titan Forge traps really just made it even worse, right? Because while they're doing all this stuff, now you're like, and I have to deal with the secrets while you've got these just like horrifically large Zerglings. Yeah. Not great.
Yeah. So this was a pretty quick decision from the team to ban Shafar because it really was like, if you missed it, you might be like, I wanted to try that. And like,
no, you didn't.
You know, like it was kind of fun to play, but it didn't feel like good fun to play. It felt like this is evil fun to play. And it definitely would have gotten very old very, very, very quickly.
Like, like if you missed it and you were like, oh, I would have wanted to play that, you would have been playing all mirrors by that point, and it would have been miserable.
Because there's no counter.
There was no counter, and people were just kind of giving up and starting, and you were seeing more and more of it, and it was just going to become like a snowball effect. I mean, this was like Day One Demon Hunter was kind of the parallel, though it reminded me a lot of like Day One Galakron Shaman we were saying before the stream, where it was just like that was everything until they made an emergency fix. So the emergency fix in this case is just yeet Shafar out of the meta for a little while. And I mean, Shafar is the kind of card that it's pretty easy to ban because it's either useless or it does crimes. So we could send him to jail for a little bit and it's fine. And
so he should be back with the next patch, which will probably be in like a week or two. Yeah. But they didn't want to wait that long.
Yes. And good on them for that, honestly.
Oh, yeah. And I am very curious how Shafar comes back. Like,
yeah. I don't know how you bring it back, honestly. I mean, maybe it's like +1/+1. Maybe it's like +1/+1.
I think the obvious thing is that you say gets up to 1 copy of this spell burst.
I don't think you can do that because it's still always giving 1 copy of the spell burst. It's just that, I guess you could have it overwrite maybe, but yeah, when they land on the same thing, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, when they land on the same thing, it can't have more than 1 copy of it.
I think it's that Zergling summons a Zergling, not a copy. But like, I don't know. I guess it depends what you want to mess with, right? But I suppose, as you say, like the Shafar effect has either been not worth running or it's been doing silly things with copy minions. Yeah. So I guess the question is what you try and preserve.
Yeah. Or maybe they just take away and a copy of the spellburst, just like spellburst, give a minion in your hand +3/+3, call it a day.
And then there's no reason to play it. That's not a legendary.
There's no reason to play it anyway unless you're abusing it. Like, when have you seen Shafar when it hasn't been abused, right?
I think it came in late in the game, right? Like, I could see a world where unchanged in 4-set meta, it is like a spell for the same kind of deck that would theoretically run the miniaturize that gets bigger on spellburst, right? Just like a tempo magi type thing where you've got a bunch of little spells and a bunch of minions where you're just triggering these spellbursts to increase the size and stuff. But everything else has just been so much more powerful that even a repetitive +3 buff has not been worth it unless you are specifically getting copies and then using a charge minion.
What if it said something like, give a minion in your hand without this spellburst +3/+3 and a copy of this spellburst? So it can't hit a minion twice. It could hit multiple minions in your hand. Right.
Yeah. They'd have to write like a whole new routine for that, which feels like it might be a lot for like a balance change. You know what I mean?
I don't know
like,
what their script actually looks like, of course, but I think that would be easier than it's hitting the minion the same time, but the spellburst is only there once. Like, it just checks the card for it and then picks a different one if not.
Give a minion without this spellburst the spellburst.
Like, maybe that's hard, I don't know, but
I do like that though. It's elegant.
I mean, my feeling is it was a free gift legendary, right? Like, nothing of value was lost. Like, we can just let it go. Like, I mean, you know, I'm not going to get on my high horse about neutral legendaries again, but like, nobody's really lost anything because everybody got that. Everybody lost it. Like, just fine. Make it generically whatever. Make it could say your minions with charge have +1 attack. I'd be fine. Right. Like, that's okay. Like, let the heart of the cards sort it out, whatever. But I feel like I worry that sometimes they will try to make it like it's such a toxic effect if it works as intended and I don't know if there's a way for them to really build it in a way that's not going to be toxic and have it behave at all the same way.
I mean, I think the intended, it's always tricky to say intended. I feel like the intended thing was like, well, Dragon Rider Talritha wasn't very good because that was Death Rattle, but this is Spellburst. So getting recursive +3/+3, you know, maybe that will be playable. And it's been the case that you need copy for it to compete in what people are doing.
Yeah. But maybe they put it on a 3/3 weapon instead, and then the weapons will break each other or something. I don't know. I do miss Valinir a little bit, but anyway.
Yeah, Valinir was great.
Yeah. So there are a bunch of other known issues. We're not going to read through all of them. We have the link to the known issues post in the show notes, which will get updated as they go through before they've gotten a chance to fix some of these. But the critical ones that you want to know about, if you're on a Mac, it may crash if you try to quit out using Command Q. So ironically, this is how we've been telling you to quit out of the game if you think that you've gotten disconnected. So now that can actually make things worse. So now I guess I don't know if you want to just hit the red button in the upper right, upper left or something if you need to quit out when you're disconnected. But if you try to Command Q, you might end up crashing the client and then not quit out. So good luck. Yeah.
We spent all this time learning one way.
Yeah.
And now, never mind.
And now we have to quit. So on mobile, they're investigating reports a small number of players can't see card names while playing on their mobile devices. So far, reports are indicated this may be limited to Pixel users. So if you are on a Google Pixel, and you're having trouble reading, it's probably not just you. That's something that they're working on. And Inventor Boom can sometimes fail to resurrect a battle cruiser if both an eligible one that costs 5 or more and an ineligible one less than 5 have died. The team is working on getting him the right schematic.
Oof.
Yeah.
I also noticed this it doesn't apply to standard players, but apparently Artanis' Twins Blades hero power is supposed to be buffed by Groovy Cat, but is not at this moment in time.
Groovy Cat's still in standard.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Well, maybe when they fix this, we'll see it.
Probably not, but it would be fun.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think we've seen it since like Quest Druid, but
That's true. It's got music theme. It's from Festivals in standard. Sometimes this is how I remember whether cards are still in standard.
Yep.
So, and apparently Wildheart Guff might be causing crashes. Speaking of Quest Druid. So, the issues with the hero power visual effect. So if you're playing that in Wild, that might be a thing. And the same issue was found with Morgul the Oracle's hero power animation. So if you're using that shaman portrait, that's been turned off. You don't have to do anything. They turned off the animation, but just in case you're wondering where it went, that's where it went. So that's that. There was a new player introduction guide that was published for players who are coming into the game because of StarCraft. So if you're listening to this podcast, it's probably not of particular interest to you, but it might be of interest to someone who you are trying to get into the game. So it goes through all the way through. How do you download the client? How do you sign up for the game? How do you go through the apprentice track? Getting a loaner deck. What are the heroes of StarCraft going to do? What do the cards look like? That sort of thing. So if you have somebody who's been trying to get into the game and they're intrigued by StarCraft, this is a good starting point for them. They have also updated the loaner decks with this expansion. So the new loaner decks they're actually from Great Dark Beyond prior to the mini set. So this is actually probably one of the best times to get a loaner deck, because then you just have to buy the mini set. Usually it's from the prior expansion, but this time they're including the most recent expansion, and all you would have to do is pay the $15 for the mini set and you're off to the races. So the 6 decks that we have in rotation for loaners right now are Frost Unholy Starship Death Knight, Aggro Discover Hunter, Elemental Mage, Libram Lanessa Paladin, Asteroid Shaman, and Odin Warrior. So given that rotation is 2 months away, some of these are going to be better than others. Certainly, Odin Warrior does come with Ceaseless Expanse, but it also has Odin and Ignis. So be aware that those are going to be rotating, though it also gives you Ham the Hungry. So it's got a decent number of legendaries, but a couple of them are rotating. Asteroid Shaman is going to lose just Golganeth. Libram Paladin is pretty much set for this year, but it's only got 2 legendaries in it. Elemental Mage only has 1 legendary, but that's Saroon, which you kind of need for that deck. Aggro Discover Hunter actually has 5 legendaries in it, and only Agrimar the Avenger is rotating. It comes with Exarch Niall, Grifta, Gorgon Zormu, and Ziliax. And you probably, if you're getting a loaner deck or you're advising somebody to get a loaner deck, one that comes with Ziliax is probably a good way to go. And then the Starship Death Knight only has 2 legendaries, and one of them is Reska.
But it is mine. So
yes, but it's Edelweiss, so you should get that. You should advise them to get that anyway, because it's awesome. But also, it's gonna only have 2 legendaries, and one of them's rotating.
I don't get anything if you do that. If you actually need these or advising somebody, it sounds like Hunter is the way to go.
Yeah.
But it is very cool that Hat, I guess maybe was playing with it so much, and like when he faced you, Megasa, just to see like, hey, is this good enough to use as one of the loaner decks?
The only thing that I would say for the Hunter one is it is definitely a harder deck to pilot. So if somebody's like totally new to card games, my husband had a lot of success with Elemental Mage. That is the cheapest. They might be able to make it anyway if they get a different deck, and then they can just kind of use the dust for, depending on whether they're also getting intro bundles and stuff like that. But the Elemental Mage is definitely a more beginner to card games friendly deck. But if they're familiar with card games or are a returning player, then probably the Hunter is the best value.
The Hunter's also just gonna, those are 2 neutral legendaries that are in nearly every deck, Gorgon Zormer and Ziliax. So that's
and Grifta too.
and Grifta also. So like, yeah, it's a little bit harder, but also they're going to be pretty set. And like, you could probably you might be able to build a more newbie friendly version of this. That's not quite all. Like, this is not necessarily as all in on everything. I mean, you do have the observer myth stuff, but it does seem like if you're just looking for, okay, well, I want to know that I'm set for a while, or, you know, I guess if you're starting up on another server for some reason, I don't know why you'd be doing that, because, you know, unless we hear that, you know, tournaments are with qualifiers on all 3 servers are coming back. And I'm not even suggesting that. I don't know anything, and I'm not suggesting that that's a thing. But I don't know why you'd be doing that otherwise. But yeah, but I mean, having Gorgon, Zormu, and Ziliax and Grifta to start with lets you play pretty much any class at that point.
That's true.
Even if you're not playing that deck specifically. But, you know, that's for people who haven't put all this money into the game. If you are inclined to put money into the game, boy, do you have options. So first of all, just a reminder, the StarCraft event is live. We've already alluded to it there. You know, again, you can pick one of the 3 factions. You have Thor Thorum for Shaman. You have Archon Vortron for Rogue, or you have Queen Tamsin for Warlock. So again, those are all StarCraft theme Hearthstone characters. It doesn't matter. Pick whichever one you're likely to play. If you don't know which one, probably just pick Zerg, because you're probably going to end up playing more Zerg than anything else over the next week or so. But it's going to, you know, these are the kinds of quests that are designed to take you a couple weeks to finish. So don't worry about it. Just pick whichever one you like the best, and you'll be fine. In the shop, however, so first of all, the Mythic Kerrigan bundle is available for purchase. So this is a Mythic skin. It looks very cool. It like corrupts the entire upper part of the board. It comes with 2 packs each for Warlock, Demon Hunter, Death Knight, and Hunter. And it's available to be played in all 4 of those classes. You're effectively buying 4 portraits at once. Which you ought to be, because it costs $60 or 6,000 runestones. So, you know, do be aware of that. That is that is paying about as much as for a AAA game as you are for a cosmetic. If you are the kind of person who is inclined to do that, you already know that you are, and you can go and buy it. If not, you're probably thinking about this a couple times, but you know, I put a lot of money into this game, but I haven't pulled the trigger on it, and I'm not sure that I'm going to. But
yeah. Like, if the timing were different.
Yeah.
I think I would have to choose between this and the next thing, which is the signature
hero cards. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this would be a very quick decision. I think of it as like, well, it's $15 per skin still, right? Because it's 4 classes, and a lot of the skins that I would get for a class are $15. You know, as it stands with us kind of tightening finances, I'm looking more at like the Nova one, which is in my mind hell of value. Like, it works for 3 classes still, but is only $15. Now, of course, it's not so fancy, but yeah, you know, $60, you break it down for 4 classes, $15 each, and accept that for each of those 4 classes you get this really incredible thing. Like, you know, they're not doing boards anymore, but this comes with its own board, right? Like, it is the portrait, it is the emotes, it is the hero power, it is the attack animations, the death animations, the victory animations, and a Zerg board.
Yeah.
Just on your side, but still.
Yeah. It looks really cool. I saw it once. I've only run into it once, and I was really tempted, but then I looked at the price tag. I'm like, that's a lot.
I've run into it multiple times.
Oh, so have I, yeah.
Yeah. So, but there are also the signature cards that you can get. So if you still have money left over after Kerrigan, and you want the signature versions of the 3 heroes, so Raynor, Artanis, and Kerrigan, you can get a bundle with all 3 of those and 15 golden packs of the Great Dark Beyond for the low price of $99.99 USD or 10,000 runestones.
$100 dues.
Yes.
Yeah.
How much could a signature cost? Michael, $10? Yeah. So
yeah,
it's I mean, you can also buy those individually for, I believe is it
40 a piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 5 golden.
You have to know that you just want that one because, I mean, I don't know, you're losing $20, right? But like, if you would consider wanting all 3, then you want to get the bundle because getting all 3 individually is more. But once again, they each of them gets used for multiple classes, right? So it's a high price tag on signature, but I think the idea is it's supposed to be balanced out by the fact that these are usable in 4 classes. Only 3 for the Terrans because we're on that 11. But yeah, it definitely makes the choice harder because these I know that these are available from multiples. Probably if I were feeling like flush, I would get just the Kerrigan signature card and then consider the Mythic Kerrigan as a skin.
Yeah.
I mean, you can keep using it. The difference between the cards and the skin is you can keep using the skin well after this stuff is rotated, whereas the signature card, eventually, unless you're playing wild, you're not using it anymore. So you better be getting maximum value out of your 2 years.
Yeah. And they might just get pushed out of the meta, right? Like, we don't know how these are going to perform once we get, rotation the next set of the year. Like, I would imagine that they're not going to, like, they want the StarCraft stuff to hit now, and they're probably not going to want us to be playing StarCraft decks all throughout the year, like at the level that we are right now, right? Because like, if the old stuff is because these are very symbiotic's not the right word. They're very parasitic synergies,
self-contained.
Yeah. So, and you have to dedicate like a lot of your deck to it. And I think that if we're still playing this after rotation, that might be something that they step in. I mean, again, I'm not telling you how to spend your money. I'm not your dad, as much as it may sound like it occasionally. But, like, that's, if I was going to spend the money on it, like, the portraits are the way I would go over the signatures, just because, like, you can use that as long as the game is functioning, and as long as those 4 classes are playable, which, I mean, they go in and out, but you'll find ways to do it, or you can use them in arena or whatever it happens to be. Right. So there are other things to buy if you still have money left. Right. So there are the other portraits, the non-mythic portraits. So there is a Jim Raynor bundle for seeming comparatively reasonable $20 or 2,000 runestones.
I mean, extremely reasonable since usable by multiple classes, right?
Yeah. So you get a Jim Raynor hero portrait that's usable for warrior, shaman, and paladin. You get a card back, and you get 2 Great Dark Beyond packs, and then 2 class packs each of all those 3 classes. You also similarly have an Artanis bundle for the 4 Protoss classes. Again, no Great Dark Beyond packs, but 2 class packs of each of those 4 classes, and a card back for $20 or 2,000 runestones. Or you can get a Nova bundle for the Terran classes, which is again shaman, paladin, and warrior, for no card back, but 2 class packs for each one of those 3 classes for $15 or 1,500 runestones.
If you're wondering the difference there, why Nova's 15, Raynor is 20, this is because the more expensive ones have hero power animations. So Artanis and Raynor have hero power animations. Nova, I think, is just cosmetic. Yeah.
But it's a cool portrait. So
it is. And that's the one that I think I'm going to get of all of these.
Yeah. I've been eyeing that one too. That one seems the one that I'm more interested in out of any of these. Like, I would love to get the Kerrigan one, but I'm not, it's very hard for me to spend AAA game money on a cosmetic, even one that I'm going to use a lot.
I'm expecting that, like all the other premium skins, this will be available sans bundle sort of forever, right? Like you can get Sylvanas, you can get, I assume, Rag, right?
Yeah.
Just in the client if you go into portraits and find it. And so I could see myself maybe not making it while it's got this bundle. The packs don't mean a lot to me, but at some point I might be like, hey, I couldn't do it then, I will do it now because it's 4 classes.
But what if you cracked
looking.
one of the signature cards with the golden packs from the bundle?
Can you? I don't know if you can.
You can open them in packs.
That's for sure.
I mean, you can open the hero cards in packs. I don't know if you can open the signatures in packs or not.
So this is something I have been skeptical of or curious of in general since they've started having purchasable signature things. I'm not sure if the ones that they release as these purchasable signature bundles, if they come up in packs or not. Like, I don't know if you could just happen to open a signature version of the Death Knight Starship or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but those aren't those. Well, I guess. Well, no, some of those are collectible cards. I have no idea, to be honest.
I think it depends. I'm not sure about this particular one. They have released signature versions of, like, they have sold bundles of ones that previously people have been opening, but I don't know whether like new ones. Like some of them seem like they're only in the shop. Others,
right? This I think is the difference, right? So cards where you could get the signatures as soon as the set came out, legendary specifically, Sif, right? Was one where a lot of people were like, oh, they finally put Sif in the shop and they never opened her, so they bought signature Sif. But the things where they say, hey, we're putting out a bundle of signature versions of the starships for all the starship classes, I don't think you can just high roll open those signature arts.
Yeah, I mean, those are not legendaries.
Right.
And
so
in general, the not legendaries have been uncollectible, whereas the legendaries have been collectible.
Yeah,
so I don't know about
this
the
is a
hero
special
cards.
case too, so who knows?
This is, I think, the first time that they are putting out a 4-purchase bundle of legendary signatures that is like, as soon as these cards are coming out, I would not be surprised if these are not able to be opened in packs.
Well, if you buy the Mythic bundle, then you could do some science and find out for us.
Yeah, let us know if you did open them, but don't buy it just for that reason, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
Yeah. Anyhow, before we make Edel spend more money, so, yeah. But that's pretty much the news. Well, the rest of the news is that there's a new expansion, a mini set out, and there's a lot of decks that we want to talk about. So let's go talk about those.
All right, so we kind of already started doing this, but what we did was we collected a deck sheet of decks that we've either been playing, made in the case of Edel, or just are aware of that we wanted to highlight. We are not necessarily guaranteeing that these are all like going to win you all the games, but we didn't put any decks in here that we like think are super bad or anything. But your mileage may vary, and we'll talk about that with some of the decks. And of course, you can always find more updated lists, but the link for this is in the show notes. So you can see all of the lists that we're talking about. And I'll try to remember if we talk about something that's not here to make sure it ends up here. So I guess we already started talking about this some, but we could start with Death Knight. There's been a lot of different iterations of Zerg Death Knight. Pretty much all of them are definitely going in with the Infestor, which of course is the death rattle. Your Zerg minions have +1/+1 for the rest of the game, even if they get hit by a Horn of the Windlord, or get reborn, or get equality'd. With different like runes. There's been your Rainbow DKs, There's been your like Frost Unholy, and I also have been seeing today Double Blood Unholy. Everybody's running Brittlebone Buccaneer, so everybody's got an Unholy rune.
Yeah. And Death Growl.
And Death Growl. Or, yeah. And it just depends on, like, do you want, like, Horn of Winter and Corpsicle? Or do you want, like, Orbital Moon? A card I would forgive you for not remembering existed. It's from this latest expansion, and it's 1 mana, and it says, give a minion Taunt and Lifesteal. If you played an adjacent card this turn, also give it Reborn. So there's the Reborn, and also Taunt and Lifesteal on a big thing late in the game could be a big deal.
Plus, if you're putting on an Infestor, that means that they have to trade through it and can't just ignore it and leave it there.
Yeah. Or if you put it on a big thing that got, buffed by that. And for the Blood ones, they're also running Airlock Breach, or the Rainbow ones often are also running Airlock Breach for a little, because it does take a second to get going. Some lists are running Mosh Pit and or Yelling Yodeler to get more triggers of the Death Rattle.
Or Death Growl.
Death Growl, definitely to get more triggers. Chill Fallen Baron is a good synergistic way to get draw. Nidus Worm, of course. You have Viper. Summon a minion from your opponent's hands. Your other Zerg minions gain Reborn and attack it, which the Reborn is often just like that's
bonus.
Just a bonus.
Yeah.
I did have someone Viper my Zarimi today, and it didn't even matter. I also had someone Viper my Ceaseless Expanse, and then not have enough to kill it, and then I killed them.
That is kind of hilarious.
That was hilarious and worth the times that I had things sniped that actually I really needed, and they did get killed.
I've had Motherships vipered. That's been fun. It's like, okay, thanks. You're doing me a favor. Thanks. I appreciate it.
Yeah. You do still have to be careful about it, depending on the matchup, but there are certain ones, right, like Protoss Mage. If you hit Colossus, like, that's rough.
I did that to somebody with an Infestor that I'd gotten off a Brood Queen, and I had like nothing better to play that turn. Or with a Viper that I'd gotten off a Brood Queen. I had nothing better to play that turn, so I just played it along with something else.
Mm-hmm.
And I got their Colossus. And
yeah,
I felt bad.
It's pretty tough to play Protoss Mage when there's a lot of specifically Death Knight Zerg around, because Viper is just so brutal. And it's like, even if they don't hit your thing, it's like, well, they probably didn't pull a minion out of your hand, and so they just gave their entire board a Reborn. I think that's what's so striking about Viper is it's like, well, either you pull a minion, and most of the time that's good, or you don't, and you've just given everything Reborn.
Yeah.
And of course, we mentioned earlier the weird static buffs Reborn interaction, right? Where Reborn is way, way, way better if you've had Infestor trigger a bunch, because they still have a bunch of health.
Yeah. But also, like, the Reborn is supposed to be there to make it so that when they do attack everything, they die and then come back. And that's like mitigating them, like the downside of them attacking. Uh-huh. Except there's no downside because they don't die.
Yeah, because they're huge, right? Only the first one maybe dies.
Maybe.
Unless they just haven't played or activated too many Infestor.
Yeah. Or the first one is an Infestor and then it buffs the rest of the board anyway, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do be aware when you do play Viper of the ordering. If you were using Firestone Tracker, it'll tell you, but like the order in which you played, the play order is the order in which they'll attack in. So that might affect the order that you play your minions before you Viper.
Yeah. The way I was doing this when I was playing it, looking at Pizza's list, I actually don't run Zergling because I play a lot more with excluding certain cards so that the draw 2 spells hit what I want, right? So in this case, that means not running Zergling so that I'm more likely to hit, Brood Queen or the Infestor, of course. And like Spawning Pool still gives you a bunch of Zerglings. Yeah. So it's not like you don't have Zerglings.
Yeah, and you get them from larvae and stuff like that too.
Right.
Yeah.
Loki, like, Infestor is insane, and that's why all these decks are built around it, right? And around making it happen as many times as possible. Brood Queen is also ridiculous, and a lot of times I would rather be able to coin Brood Queen than than necessarily just have Infestor and not a lot of follow-up. There are games where it's like, well, I don't have an Infestor, but I can coin Brood Queen, and it doesn't look like I can deal with it for a couple of turns, and then the larva gives me Infestor eventually.
Yeah, there was a discussion in the Discord about, like running, if you want to restrict your Nidus Worm, right, are you running like Brood Queen versus running Zergling and stuff like that? And I definitely found I had mirrors where they got their Infestors, but I got my Brood Queens and I won. Because they ran out of stuff and I didn't. You do sometimes have to worry about your hand space if you have a lot of Brood Queens, but it just, it gives you stuff to do forever, and it gives you more of all the other minions. And 5 health is just a lot of health, and more if you have an Infestor die.
It is a testament to how nuts all this stuff is that Death Knight is largely not running like CNE, the Titan,
Reska.
Like there are some, right? Some of these lists, you know, are doing rainbow things, but I feel like that quickly got eliminated for actually let's just focus on Infestors. And the Banelings, I feel, are super key because once you've triggered Infestor a bunch, I often save my Yodelers for buffed up Banelings, right? Because people put a bunch of taunts in the way, and then I Yodel a Baneling and clear.
Yeah, or your last press of the spawning pool to be able to give them rush and then be able to take stuff out.
Yeah, you do want to think about like, when am I giving my things rush? Make sure that you order things correctly for your Banelings to actually like do damage when you want them to do damage. And yeah, there can be things to think about in terms of ordering for clearing boards, but you can clear a lot of boards with the Banelings.
Yeah, I really hope they change it to +1 attack. That's my change for Infestor is +1/+0, because it makes a lot more sense to me in terms of the themes of Zerg, and the +1 health is just too much. I think Zerg decks besides DK will be more playable with that change, right? Because right now it's like, well, why am I playing anything but DK when it comes to Zerg?
Yeah, which was the case with Hunter before they banned Shafar,
right?
Because like then it was like, well, why would I play Death Knight when I can just play Shafar and get gigantic Zergling? So yeah, but I think that the fact that it's hard to clear the boards is really and that the normal ways that you would kind of make the board softened up, especially the fact that the Reborn doesn't work,
and your cards don't work in certain instances, right? Like I played Equality as a Paladin. I was like, oh yeah, no, I can't play Paladin right now. Like it's just my cards don't work.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. I mean, not that I'm feeling bad for rogues ever, but there's that card off of Stick Up. Is it like Lasso by the Law or something? The one that sets it to 1 and then does 1 damage.
Card. Yeah. Paladin does a lot of this. Set something's health to 1.
Yeah, but that's not a Paladin card because only Rogue ever plays it. But it's but that's a very common way that Rogue will deal with a big minion is they'll stick up into that, and it's like, well, nope, that's not going to work anymore. And like I had a game where I was behind the entire game, and then they played a Horn of the Windlord. It was a shaman. They played a Horn of the Windlord, and they tried to trade into one of my giant buffed Zergs, and it was still there, and then they just conceded, and that was the end of the game because they didn't realize that was how that worked. And Horn of the Windlord just does not do anything. Yeah.
The last time we had an effect like this was Goru the Might Tree, a little played druid legendary. There was a 7/10 maybe taunt. It just said your treants have +1/+1 for the rest of the game as a battle cry. So people would not have interacted with it that much then. And beyond that, it's just like South Sea Captain and old Murloc war leader.
Well, also the
Which
automatons
could
and
kill.
priest.
And pre-nerf Ziliax.
Yeah. I guess Ziliax is the most recent, right? Pre-nerf.
But I mean, so people don't see them, but the automatons and priest work this way.
Yeah,
and if you
that's
do
true.
play
Sure.
them, which I've done every once in a while,
Okay,
people
that's fair.
absolutely get messed up by it.
Yeah.
But there are more recent examples. They've just either been more fringe or been on a thing that you can kill, like Ziliax or like South Sea Captain.
But if a treant falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound?
Yeah, it makes a little tree dying sound. We've all heard many times.
Well, no, but you can hear it. So.
This is why if you're playing Astral Automatons and you gravity shift, their size doubles.
Yes, every once in a while somebody would be like, yeah, this is... There was a brief moment at the start of GDB when that was a cute thing that was happening a little bit.
See, that's another one that doesn't work now with the Zerg. You can't gravity shift them.
Why would you?
I don't know. Why would you play Worgen Raider for Worgen Roadie, whatever the hell that card is? I don't know. People do weird stuff. I don't know what to tell you.
I encountered that deck around like 1700 Legend, and well, I was lower than that. They were 1700, and I was like, "What is happening, Worgen Roadie? I don't understand." Because I was playing Handlock.
That's about the same place that the person I ran into was playing it at. So I think
maybe it's the same person.
Maybe it's the same person. Although there was actually quite a few games on the list when I went to HS Guru, so it's not either this person has been playing a lot or it's not just them. Yeah.
It is the canary in the coal mine when there is such dedication and creation of a polarized deck to defeating one thing, which is Infestor. So
the one card, yes. But speaking of playing Zerg and other classes, we do have a Zerg location Discover Hunter from, I believe this is originally from Kubu Gaming. It got into our Discord through McBanterface, and also it's been played by Ron Mexico. So the list could have come from multiple places. It's Discover Hunter, but it's also got Parrot Sanctuary, and of course Spawning Pool, and Seaside Giant, which is the giant that is 10 mana to start with, that costs 2 less for each time you've used a location this game, which if you get a Parrot Sanctuary out, you use it 3 times immediately. And so then your Seaside Giant is already 4 mana, and if you get anything else, then it's free.
And Spawning Pool is one that you want to get down on one anyway, and that activates it. This is similar themes to the way my Handlock functions, right? But it's so on point, like using Parrot Sanctuary, and just you can play a bunch of free Zerglings.
Yep, it's a bunch of free Zerglings, and then you Hydralisk, and then you saddle up. And that makes your board a little stickier. And you've got Alien Encounters, of course. You've got Titanforge Traps, of course. Evolution Chamber is the new card that gives your minions +1 attack, give your Zerg an extra +1/+1. I definitely think, it's harder to play and probably will do better if/when they hit Infestor, just because people have more interest in playing the other Zerg decks. But if you like Discover Hunter, this is definitely worth trying. And it is really fun to get like big Seaside Giant and like a big Hydralisk and then saddle up the whole board. And then be like, your turn. I only played one game of this deck because that was the game where I ran into the Hex Shaman. And then I was so mad that I had to stop.
Yeah.
So it's possible that if I had been a little smarter about my evolution chambers, I could have gotten through.
I mean, you also would have needed to know what the hell was happening before it was already happening to you. Which I don't expect that you would. I don't know why you would know why that was happening to you.
Yeah. But it is a fun deck that still has. It's kind of like it's doing Zerg things instead of the Mantle Shaper stuff, basically. And Parrot Sanctuary continues to be a card that does funny stuff. Powerful, funny stuff. We also have moving on to I guess we could do Warlock first to just finish up Zerg, and then we'll come back. So We have a Zerg Wheel Warlock from No Hands Gamer and also a Handlock from our very own Edelweiss. And Edel, you said this is one of the decks you played the most of. How's that been going for you?
Well, I played a ton early on, right? I don't know how it plays out now. Initially, people were not so fully committed to Infestor, so I was able to beat DKs a little more consistently. And Shaman, like this Swarm Shaman with the Terran stuff with the starships was pretty popular, and I was able to beat that really consistently. So, yeah, I was doing well, and I did reasonably well against other things. I beat occasionally, like warriors and different stuff, just because giants fast good. Like
yeah. So you've got Seaside Giant, which gets discounted because you have a bazillion locations. Some people have been calling this real estate warlock.
Mm-hmm.
Or I suppose you could say like landlord warlock. Your rent comes due. You also have like Dark Alley Pact and Forge of Wills, of course. Lots of clears here. Spawning Pool does help with your hand game because it puts something in your hand. You've got Consume for healing.
And Ultralisk Cavern is reasonable clear wise. If we think of the shaman spell, the magma drink, where it was 3 instances of 1 damage to everything. Now you could do multiples of those in the same turn, but otherwise this is the same, right? You play it, you get a 1 to everything, and then you get potentially 2 more of those. Usually 1, because then you consume it. But
it would be a lot more reasonable in a pre-Infestor world where Zerglings actually had 1 health.
Yep.
But yeah. I would like to put forth Monopoly Warlock as the name for this.
I like that better than Landlord, although it's still. Mine is extremely heavy on the right. Like I have Double Defile. I had 2 domino effects until I took 1 out for Symphony of Sins, but just like all the clears, domino effect, mortal eradication. I forget what the very first version didn't have reverb, and then I was tired of getting DK tightened. They would do that on a giant.
That sentence is like from 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, they don't do that anymore. But reverb is still good, right? For taking out early stuff, because reverbing an infestor is good. They have a reborn infestor. It's good for me too. So it's just a lot of fun. You make big stuff. The Zerg things, I often find it's like I Kerrigan very late, like after I have used all the ticks of my Fellstring harps. And maybe after I've played Sargeras. Board space management is a challenge. You have to sometimes get very creative with your okay, do this so this location disappears, and then we activate the spawning pool, and now I have to play the Zerglings, rush, play the Zerglings, rush, play the but you can get some interesting defile clears with giving the Zerglings rush to put all these individual 1 damage hits places, and before using defile. So defile, very hard to use in an infestor world, but it's cool, and I hope that infestor changes to not give health, because it will be better then.
I think that's probably on their list of at least things to look at, as well as if we keep having a lot of weapon rogue and or maybe Dungar Druid, because it's still Dungar Druid, although I've been killing them. But it depends on what deck you're playing.
Yeah.
If you want to play Protoss, however, we have one list here for Protoss Mage from Theo. One thing that I noticed in here that definitely seems like a good idea is the Cosmic Keyboard, because you have a lot of, you've got Chrono Boost, for example, Shield Battery, Primordial Glyph, Photo Cannon, having those all come with a keyboard, or you're getting more spells back from Resonance Coil, which is deal 5 damage to a minion, get a random Protoss spell. All of that giving you something with the keyboard seems like a great way to help a little bit with the early board. You've got Sleet Skater. You do have 2 Colossus in case one gets killed, but I definitely would imagine that DK is a difficult matchup for this deck.
Yeah. And I wonder if you just start running Blizzards in that now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because that just buys you a lot of time, ultimately.
Yeah, maybe you do. It looks like this particular list is 33 into Death Knight. So
sounds right.
That's not great.
Because Khadgar will cast Blizzard once in a while when he feels like it, but maybe you just run the Blizzard and know that you're actually going to get the Blizzard out of it, you know?
Yeah, this is probably an earlier in the release list.
Almost certainly.
But, you can always look for more recent cards in the archetype. Let's see, archetypes. Decks.
I guess there's also Soul Freeze.
Oh yeah, that's the Warlock Mage one. That's not bad either. Yeah. I pulled some of these decks yesterday, which was again about 17 years ago in meta time. So
there is a Protoss Mage with a 50% win rate and 1,200 games that is running Hollow Technician because then it'll die for sure. After any minion takes exactly 1 damage, destroy it.
That's see now this is pod racing. Like I know that's the wrong sci-fi series, but still.
You're doing that with Seabreeze Chalice.
Yeah, of course.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
That's
and you've
hilarious.
got Volume Up, probably to discover a copy of your Seabreeze Chalice.
Mm-hmm.
Rustrot Viper for the Weapon Rogues.
Yep. Yeah, I just threw 2 Rustrot Vipers in the Mage because it's just like, well, this is the only way we can have a shot against Weapon Rogue, and I guess Tradable's fine.
The next one down at 48.1% win rate in 1,800 games has Blizzard, Bob the Bartender.
Yep, for another board freeze.
Mesa Dune the Fractured for your Sleet Skater. Actually, both of them have that. Sleepy Resident. Taunt, death battle, all other minions fall asleep. Rewind, Soul Freeze.
Clearly, this is... I'm curious to see the spreads, right? Because all of these are very clearly for Infestor, right? For DK.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, but the win rate's still not that great. Because they're mediocre in a whole bunch of other matchups. So I wonder, like, do you just have to swallow the tough pill and play the numbers game and be like, well, I'm not seeing that many DKs, so I'm just not going to worry about it.
It does occur to me that it is very on brand for there just to be a parade of Zerg decks that multiply and then take over the meta. And it's really hard. And it's once they've started, it's very hard to beat them back individually.
I'm gonna add this one with this list with the Seabreeze Chalice and the Hollow Technician.
Yeah.
To
that feels more reasonable.
Our list,
because that works
also
against
hilarious.
other things. Right? Like you're not gonna want to Blizzard everyone. You're not gonna want to.
Yeah. You can also get rid of starships that way if you run into the odd Terran here and there, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and Chalice is just solid into a lot of things, I'm sure.
It's more liquid. Sorry, that was too easy. You teed that one right up for me.
Yeah, okay, I have added that as well. We have... Let's talk about this rogue real fast, and then we have a lot to say about Priest. So, I actually don't really know exactly how this rogue plays out, but I put it in here. It is an Archon rogue that SSJ5 Goku posted in our Discord, so blame him. And I don't think this is his list, but it's just like all the bounces, basically, except for Brewmasters. But we've got Shadow Step, we've got Breakdance, and we've even got Bounce Around. And then lots of ways to get your High Templars to cost exactly 1 so that you can Sonya them. That's why the Bounce Around is there, I assume. And then draw and like Tarslick and things to hopefully survive. dubious purchase.
It's Sonya Archons.
It's Sonya Archons.
So the reason you've got the combo thing, because it will draw the Archon and reduce by 2, but if you draw it without that discount, then you can play and step. So that's why they only do the one that does an AoE 2 damage, because it's useful in no matter what situation. And then once you've stepped it, it's 4 cost, which means when you use the old reduce thing by 3...
Sandbox Scoundrel, yeah.
Right. It costs 1, and you can Sonya. And this is the method, right? You do the setup, and then you Sonya, Scoundrel, Archon, one thing, Archon. I suppose, theoretically, you could then bounce around at that point to like get multiples of the Archon. I don't know what the plan is after.
I guess you could get more Archons out of the Sonya, I guess, but yeah.
Oh no, here you go. Then you reduce cover artist.
Yeah.
To 1, and then you cover artist. So you've got, it's still just 24 damage. So I don't know how.
I will point out this has a 75% win rate over a blistering record of 4 games total. And this person apparently lives a charmed life because they managed to not queue into a single Death Knight across those 4 games.
Maybe it was fast enough. I don't know.
They beat 2 shamans and 2 paladin and went 1-1 against paladin. So first of all, they managed to find 2 paladins out of 4 games, which is already an abnormal sample size, regardless of context. But yeah, this is very much a try at your own risk, because this is incredibly small sample size, and it is completely untested into the one deck that matters in this meta right now.
So, yeah. But if you really want to scratch the Sonya itch, let me see if there's anything that has a better sample rate here. There is lists that have a better sample rate that run Dark Templar as well. Okay. And like more Protoss minions. So there's one here with almost 4,000 games and a 50% win rate. And it's actually positive into Death Knight, 55.6. Does not do well against druids, does not do well against other rogues, but otherwise pretty good.
Other rogues is weapon rogue.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
I mean, you can maximize into Death Knight, or you can maximize into everything else, but it's very difficult to like beat Death Knight and anything else in the meta, basically.
Yeah, this is actually, I'll add this one in as well. I just don't know where this one came from either, so except for I found it on HS Guru, but sometimes if a streamer has streamed it, HS Guru will say who streamed it. But if it came from somewhere else, then we don't necessarily know. Archon Rogue with more...
Yeah. But let's stop talking about Rogue and start talking about Priest, because that's what people are really here for.
Yep. All right. Well, Wicked has been playing Priest the way that we talked about playing Priest. And I have been playing some of that, but then someone named Lime in the VS Discord, who has now come into the CC Discord, posted what they originally called a Protoss-less Zarimi Protoss Priest, and I proposed we call Zealot Zarimi, and I think Hat proposed calling Zartani Priest.
Yes.
At any rate, it is Zarimi, except we are running Artanis, we are running Chrono Boost, we are running Hallucination, and we are not running any actual Protoss minions because we just care about the Zealots. So they can be just like some good tempo. You just got some 3/4s with charge, that's just enough. You copy them, then you've got like 6, face, or if you have a second, and you basically always draw it because the Chrono Boost draw you the other ones. Or you can use Vol'jin to like flip it with their giant, and now that's like 16. Or if you really, really need to kill them because they're a warrior and you let it go late, you can use Ceaseless Expanse. So you can like do a Zarimi turn first, because you still have Zarimi turns, right? You're still a Zarimi priest. And And then you can play Ceaseless Expanse, and then Chrono Boost, and then Vol'jin. So the Ceaseless Expanse becomes a 3/4, the Zealot becomes a 15/15. And then Hallucination it twice. And if you happen to have like an orbital halo, you do that first. If you happen to have like an Amonthul that lived somehow, which you probably don't, but you can copy it. There's lots of ways to get just stupid amounts of damage with this. It's also running kind of as much draw as possible, Nightshade Tea and Hot Coals. Even though we don't have Ethereal Oracle, the fact that the T can go 3 times is really helpful. This was more helpful against the Shamans than I think it is against the Infestor Death Knights, but you can still kind of like get the Buccaneer before they actually use it when they tempo it on 2 and stuff like that. And the Hot Coals does go face. This version that I've put here has Birdwatching. Lime has since switched to Banker because they say they're more interested in like making sure that they get the Chrono Boost or any particular spell that they want. But I could see an argument either way. And this one has 2 Clay Matriarchs, but the version that I've been playing has 1 Clay Matriarch and Grifta. Because Grifta can steal a taunt and then hit face with it, or deal 6 damage over the top, or heal you 12 because it's a weapon rogue, or draw you 3 because you don't have enough draw because you're a priest. I mean, sometimes you actually do have enough draw with this. It just depends on how you happen to, what order you draw your deck in. There are a lot of draw cards in this, actually, compared to like the Chrono Boost. Even though there's only a few cards that it can tutor, like it does get them out of your deck. So then you're drawing other things.
Yeah. I mean, there's something to be said for getting the things out of your deck that you don't want to draw on your draw step. So, yeah.
I could see like one of the ways that these cards continue to see play beyond mini set, or just like, once we hit rotation and we get new stuff that they want that stuff to hit. Yeah, that package of just Artanis, Chrono Boost, and choose your favorite from the class you're playing could be quite good. Like I could see a mage maybe doing the armor, right? Because it discounts your next thing by 2. Or maybe even just proton cannon because it deals 3. But just because getting the charge and getting Artanis is very powerful. It probably works the best in priest variations because of hallucination, right? Like rogue doesn't have as good things that they would want to include.
6 charge damage is better than 3 charge damage. I've run the numbers.
Yeah, Druid, like the only thing would be the 0 cost spell, which is worse if you're not running a density of stuff. So, but yeah, even just like double Chronos boost Artanis, just like always get Artanis, and then your second Chrono boost is just a 3/4 charge. Oh no, like
yeah, you're just using that to finish out the game. So, and then Artanis is, he can just win you the game with his 3/4 chargers, or his hero power is pretty good. So even if you're not getting the discount too, it's still a good card.
Divine Shield on self and something else is a lot.
It is a lot. Yeah. It is a lot. It definitely has won me games. Just keeping my stuff alive and myself alive, and then also you give yourself an attack and you give it an attack, so that's an extra 2 damage to their face if you go face, or to something else if you hit the minion, which you're essentially immune while you're attacking because you have the Divine Shield on your face. So, yeah,
it gets weird in the non-zealot Protoss priest mirror where you both have Artanis and you're both having to use your hero power to hit your opponent in the face for 1 to pop the Divine Shield so you can actually do damage to them with anything else. It is a little bit like you're sitting there with like a Colossus that's going to do 14, but it's really only going to do 7 if you don't spend the 2 mana to pop them in the face just to get rid of the Divine Shield first.
All right, but actual like Mothership Protoss priest, we have 3 versions here. Wicked, what have you been playing?
Well, I haven't been playing. I've been playing somebody else's version because the version I've been playing doesn't have Void Rays in it. And it does run Pip the Potent, so I'm not sure if the list I've been playing is even any of these. But there's a couple ways you can build it. One is with basically, do you want to run Chill and Vol'jin or don't you? Is a lot of it. There's also a version for Makai Time that runs Arcanite Defense Crystals, which I don't know if that's the way because there's just not a lot of room in the deck. If you're running Vol'jin, then you're running Bird Watching.
I have Vol'jin, no Hunter cards.
Yeah, you can run Bird Watching. I mean, that's what Insane is doing. I like Pip because Pip gets you more. Well, sometimes you need more Deafens against Zerg. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you need more hallucinations. Sometimes you get one discount on Sentry and then you just get more sentries.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's very easy to just make that happen, right? Like if you've got Pipsy, there have been times where I'm like, oh, cool. If Protocol hits Sentry, then I can play one of them and I know the other one's just going to cost one, right? Yeah. Like it's pretty easy to just make sure, okay, they cost one and now I can Pip to get copies. So that's a pretty fun interaction.
Yeah. I mean, this one from Insane was also early when they were running Holy Nova when we thought that might still kill anything on a Zerg board, which it absolutely does not. So that's generally been getting cut. The one I'm running has Serenity and Repackage. So Repackage just deals with all the death rattles without actually popping them, which is nice. And Serenity can sometimes deal with like an early board. I've gone to the point where I've just played a non-combo Deafen on a Brittlebone Buccaneer because I'm not dealing with it. And you just need to do whatever you have to do to get rid of them. Defen's also really good for killing the early infestors without triggering them. I think that will probably be the kind of thing that I don't know how often you can really play around Silence as a Zerg as a DK.
Depends on the build.
Yeah, but I mean, you don't necessarily want to take too long before you start trying to go, and you may just have to just hope they don't have it.
I've found that I could often, with the way I've been playing it, right, do stuff like you put out Buccaneer, you gonna silence it? You know, you put out Chill Fallen Baron, you put out Brood Queen, right? These other things that like. I mean, they never do the Chill Fallen Baron, but like,
no, that's a waste.
The queen, like, is something that will be gross if it sticks around, right? And so, if they just can't deal with it for an extended period of time, it's like, well, maybe they're tempted to silence it, and if they don't, well, now I'm having all these larvae that can just turn into extra infestors, right? It's just like you can hit that capacity where you sort of outmaneuver the ability of a priest to silence, and if you land a death growl, that's it. Like there's no dealing with three of them generally.
Yeah. No, I mean that's when I cry into I that's when I start looking like the meme of Wolverine holding the portrait, except that the portrait is a copy of Shard of the Naru.
Yeah.
But I mean otherwise it's generally you're trying to get as many discounts as you can through photon cannons, through making as many sentries as you can, and then once you start getting motherships down, they will generate more sentries for you occasionally. But I mean, Creation Protocol, sometimes I will just grab a sentry off of it and it's fine. I'll get 2 copies of that, and that's perfectly okay. But yeah, and then Repackage is helpful for just clearing a board when it gets too big, without having to worry about all the death rattles. And usually there's a bunch of garbage that they don't necessarily want to put into their hand anyway. I guess if they're a Zerg, it doesn't matter because they're all going to be huge by the time that they draw it back, but at least it's solving the problem for then. And you don't necessarily need to do too much because like the motherships start getting out of control. And when you have enough discounts, like you start being able to do things like just play out both Templars on one turn because you're effectively getting like double discounts on the Archon. If you think about it that way, because you're discounting both halves of it. And oh, by the way, those both do things when you play them. So that's pretty effective. Like Colossus, you play a bunch of spells, of Protoss spells. The Colossus does work. And like Carrier, you can get down to as long as you have the board space for it, you can get some some decent work there. It's just a matter of getting the spells, getting the Protoss minions discounted enough early so that you can play the Mothership and play the two creatures that or two minions that come along with it, so that you have enough hand space for the next one. Because like what you have to really manage is like, you don't necessarily want to have like 3 or 4 motherships on the board at once, because then if they all get cleared, you just don't get the value out of them. So you have to kind of meter those out. You're going to use power chord synchronize fairly liberally on those. You'll of course run Amenthul. Sometimes you make a copy of the Mothership with Amenthul. Sometimes you make a copy of the Zealot with Amenthul. That's also a thing that you can do. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting deck. It's very different than a lot of the priest decks that we've gotten, certainly over the past year, because a lot of it's just been like overheal or variations of Zarimi, and this feels like a new thing that priest really hasn't had before, which is pretty cool.
I really like it.
Yeah, I know, it's fun.
It doesn't, at least the version I'm playing, like, it doesn't feel like Control. Like, you're running a 12 cost thing that is a pile of value, but it doesn't feel like Control because it's centered around these discounts, right? So, like, I don't have the repackage or some of the other things, but I do have Love Everlasting. It's just like, yeah, you've got charge minions, you've got, you know, certain tech cards like Deafen and Silver Moon Brochure that I'd love not to have to run, but
yeah,
we do. And yeah, if you pip the hallucinations, that's more Protoss spells for a potential Colossus, right? It's this fun thing of like, well, maybe Carrier in Druid isn't really a thing, but we can play Carrier in Priest.
You just get it's just like Protoss greatest hits in Priest, which is fun. And like I don't know if repackages it. I don't even know if Love Everlasting is it, to be honest. Like, it's
felt really nice for me. Like, you know, being able to forge, then creation protocol same turn, and like just have, like, even though it eventually goes away, the Love Everlasting, I do really appreciate its ability to just smooth out turns.
I do find that I have trouble just like finding that time to play it in the first place, right? Like, you just don't, like, there's usually stuff you're having to react to and you just don't get the time to be able to play it a lot of the time initially. But, you know, maybe things change a little bit, but yeah.
I'm almost wondering if I can slot Silver Moon Brochure into that Zarimi somewhere, because I think the immune this turn and +2/+2 is not actually useless, right? In Zarimi, and then
I mean,
silence is silence,
especially if you're hallucinating zealots, right? Like, that's
right.
Yeah,
just more damage.
+2/+2 becomes +4/+4 or +6/+6, right? If you're getting all these copies, so.
That is how copying works. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that's another thing that you can do with your Grifta, by the way, is you can get the discount. So don't do this unless you're like going to win right away with it. Just FYI. Or you really think your opponent can't take advantage of it. But I did destroy a warrior with just like every card in my hand because I had discounted them all by 1 with Grifta. And I overkilled them by a lot. I probably was a bit of a BM to do that, but I was like, I just wanted to see what I could do.
Was this right after the shaman game?
I wish. No, it was earlier. It would have been the perfect palate cleanser.
I know you didn't do this to me, but I'm taking this out on you anyway.
Yeah. Well, last on here that I don't think we touched on, there is a Terran shaman from Kilika HS, which is basically that swarm shaman that I was talking about, where, you know, it's got some of the menagerie stuff. You don't run the party animal anymore, right? But Trusty Companion has a lot of versatile and great hits. You still got, you know, Turbulus, just because it's Turbulus. And yeah, you run Liftoff and STV and Missile Pod, Starport, all the Terran cards, basically.
Oh, Lock-On, so that's another card that's useless now.
Yep, against Infestors, yep. I mean, right. There's a lot of non-DK things where it's still effective, and 1 mana to discount a starship launch by 2 can be relevant by itself. But yeah, it is awkward. Yeah, just be careful with your Horn of the Windlord, but it's pretty good. I have seen some development where people have started like doing this, taking this deck, and then just adding Shutter Block.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you do that with Raynor, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Grifta's fine too, right? Like, Grifta's not a bad hit for that either.
Yeah, I don't know how frequently Grifta is in these lists, but
I mean, the one that we have in the deck sheet has it. So, and I guess you could get it. You could do something with missile pod, I guess, but probably not.
Sometimes. This list isn't running Ghost, but you could be running Ghost, right? And that's a thing that sometimes can just win games, right? You delete 3 cards from their hand and they exit the client.
Yeah.
But also just like Shutter Block with the second half of Grofin is great. So
yeah, some are also running like the Siege Tank and stuff if you want to have a little bit more of a top end.
That right. Yeah, and the Siege Tank was definitely in a lot of things before. It is significant damage, but of course that does not work with Shutter Block because you won't deal damage to the face.
So I guess if you're going to go like turn 7, like sometimes it's a problem to get the front half of Shutter Block down. But if you do that on 7 with an SCV, then you can just launch a starship behind it.
Right.
Right. So that would be, because that's just basically a free starship launch if you go Shutter Block into SCV. So that could be another thing that you could do.
Yeah. And then I have a deck that was again pretty decent at killing the other shamans that I was seeing a bunch of at the time, but a little trickier into the infestors. It's basically like a slower starship shaman where, you know, you've got all the Terran cards, but then you've got Hagatha for Frosty Decor and Meteor Storm. I've got the Exodar in here, which has situationally been quite nice. It doesn't work with Shutter Block because once it's launched, you can't launch it again. But it just is often nice to get the double armor, or sometimes, because all these things are 2/1s, you even do the offensive formation. But this is much more of a like, there's no discounting launching starships in this deck. It is all about actually building up a big battle cruiser that eventually you will launch.
I will point out also, I looked at just like battle cruiser shaman stats past 6 hours. It's still 57.4% over like Diamond 3 Legend and positive versus Death Knight. So like this is a good archetype.
Yeah, probably mine isn't as good against Death Knight, but certainly the Swarm Shaman adapted to Terran Shaman is just fast enough to overrun the Death Knights a lot of the time, right? Like, I think it has decent odds there because the way people have built now is much more like you get the infestors rolling and then you do crazy things, and the Shaman can sometimes just kill you before then. Yeah.
We also have... and I had some fun with the Menagerie Shaman, and also being on stream with you, doing a little bit of the slower Shaman. Just I did enjoy doing that. Although I'm glad I haven't seen too many ghosts on the other side, I will say. We also have, in terms of Terran decks, there's Paladin's been struggling a little bit. We do have a aggro Starship Paladin here from Glory, and it's still, that's definitely overall more of like a lower tier 3 archetype. Depending on your build. But this particular build looked somewhat promising, and maybe this will come up. It's mech swarm, but also you have starships, Crusader Aura, Flash Sail. I did get beat by someone playing essentially this deck at some point yesterday.
It looks like it's got a slightly below 50% win rate against Death Knight, but it beats a lot of the things that aren't Death Knight. Right. Aside from
if we do
Shaman.
See changes. Yeah.
I mean, Crusader Aura remains extremely powerful, and if you just have that up when you start doing Hellbat things, it's it's a lot.
Yeah, if in the StarCraft event that they had this morning, it was pre-recorded, but with Day 9 and Trump SC and Tasteless and Artanis casting, they were very impressed. Artosis, sorry. Artanis is totally different. Yeah, they were impressed with the aggro starship. Now, they were playing this before the set came out, right? So things always change once the set came out, but it did, perform well there, and seems like it's on the edge.
It might also be when Infestor inevitably gets nerfed, then this is something you could consider and just kind of keep in the back of your mind too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and that by the way, if you're watching this live, there's another event tomorrow morning, so watch that if you can.
Yes.
If you are listening to this afterwards, I'm sure there will be a VOD. It'll be on YouTube.
Yeah, but also you get golden packs, a golden pack and a regular pack if you watch them. So do that.
I was a little bit too slow to get the golden pack this morning. I dawdled a little bit getting out of work, and then it ended, and I was like, no, but I don't really need the golden pack. Lastly, we have some Terran warrior lists here. There's a Terran taunt warrior from No Hands Gamer. I don't know whether he has whether this is his most recent or not. Both Enzo and No Hands Gamer, it's kind of a hydration station warrior. Slower, does still make kind of a big starship. So that they both have Fizzle, Arcanite defense crystals, ham so that they can ramp, Sleep Under the Stars, Inventor Boom. No Hands Gamer is running Ceaseless Expanse. Right, I had a Ham the Hungry eat my Zarimi today out of a million options, and then I had a different game earlier where I was doing really comfortably against the warrior, except for all of my draw and my Amanthul and my Zarimi were all in the bottom 10 cards of the deck.
Oof.
So I did not win that game. I was like, I just have to draw something. Just anything. Just anything. Then they had 100 armor, and I'm like, I guess it's too late now. But yeah, Hostile Invader is still a good card. Enzo has Chemical Skill in ETC. I think he decided that it was better there.
Hydration Station still works with the starships with Arcanite as long as you've gotten an Arcanite Defense Crystal into it. So, and it gives you another Arcanite Defense Crystal if you don't have a lot of other taunts.
Yeah. And the Concussive Shells is actually pretty decent and a turn 1 play. And deal 2 damage and gain 2 armor. Your next starship launch costs 1 less. They play something and it's just dead on turn, turn 1 on the coin, for example. So
before we sign off here, because we are getting to the 2-hour mark, I just have one gripe about the Terran stuff. Largely design, amazing. They found a great way of being able to include so many units from StarCraft into a Hearthstone mini set. It's actually kind of insane how effectively they were able to get all or almost all the units. Medevac. So one of the ways they did this, right, is the starport has all these different ships in it for the Terrans. Medevac is it is reasonable if you roll one of them.
And this is the one that gives you 2
2
marine taunts.
2 marine taunts, right? And if you are aggressive, it can be good, right? Oh wow, you get a board full of 2/2 taunts, right? You get to launch your starship and it's a board in a box. Sure. But a lot of this stuff is clearly leaned towards, well, you want to launch multiple starships over the course of the game, and then you want Raynor to relaunch those multiple starships. And if you just get unlucky and have medevacs, you don't have board space. And it feels really bad. I do see how getting to just choose which ship you summon every time would be too strong, right? Because depending on the matchup, you would just always pick Banshee or always pick Raven, and have exactly what you need to deal with whatever the opponent's doing. I almost wonder, though, if it could be like a look at 3, choose one whenever you do one of these things. Because so frequently I'm just like, great, I rolled medevac 3 times in a row, which means I can't Shudder Raynor. I guess I lose. Because if your board is full, Raynor cannot launch more starships. And this can even happen even if you aren't doing Shudder things. You could say, oh, well, Shudder, that's not really a thing they want you to do. If you just roll medevac 3 times, then Raynor will not summon another starship because your board is full after you've launched the first one. And so if you had to launch it for reasons which, like, at that point, you're incentivized to launch it quickly to fill your board with stuff and be proactive. But then I guess you may as well just play Raynor as soon as possible because you can't eke any more value out of it. You're not going to have board space. It's like my one gripe. And I don't really get how... I mean, limited stuff to work with. You've already got Viking giving 7 armor. So then, if medevac did like healing somehow, like you might expect, it feels like redundant and weird. And how do you make that decent? But gosh, do I really wish it was not summoning minions. Rant over.
No, it makes sense. All right, well, I mean, I will second. It's definitely been a really... I mean, I don't think I can think of a more impactful mini set.
Yeah.
Ever.
Well,
at all.
I can think of more impactful ones, but not more fun ones. Like the oh god, I've blanked it out now.
Dark Moon Races?
No. The Kazakhstan was definitely impactful, but not in a good way. So,
but yeah, in terms of like flavor and impact, it feels like an expansion launch.
Anyway, we have many folks we'd like to thank. Check out our thanks section on the website at Concede.com, where you can also find our contact info, our show notes, and our Patreon information. You can monetarily support our show at patreon.com/Concede. Join us every week live by following us on Twitch at twitch.concede.com. Join our community chats in our Discord at discord.concede.com, and write into our email at coinconcede@gmail.com. Follow us on Blue Sky at CoinConcede. Wicked may make a final post over on X. We'll call it X now that we don't use it. But I think we're done. It's time.
Yeah, and we're not going to get into why. If you followed the news at all the past week, you know why. And if not, well, you can probably figure it out. But even absent that, like, the reach isn't there anymore. The audience isn't really... I mean, the audience may be there, but it's impossible to get posts out to people anyway. So yeah, we're just going to cut ties with it and just move over to Blue Sky.
Better off regrowing on Blue Sky than engaging with X.
Yeah, and you have so much control over your feed on Blue Sky, and also just like in terms of sharing links with people, Blue Sky tends to like they don't have like an algorithm that hides that, right? So, and if you are trying to find Hearthstone people on Blue Sky, you can look at Wicked has a starter pack. You can look at people's follows. You can see who Ridiculous Hat is following, which is what I did. So there's more and more people every day from the Hearthstone community going over there.
Yeah.
Cool. And then, final thing, if you would like some CC swag, head on over to our shop at shop.coinconcede.com. So, CoinConcedes, I will go first. CoinConcede to Minty Fresh, who I ran into on Ladder when I was streaming, and he wrecked me. I think he was on Infestor DK of some variety. That was before everything was like super all in necessarily, I feel like. Mm-hmm. But he did roll Infestor off of Assimilating Blight. So, yeah.
I mean, that's that dev luck, I guess.
I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was super cool. Afterwards, he popped by and said hi in the stream and followed me on Twitch. So that's cool. I've got to actually, like, as soon as we're done here, I believe he's streaming. So I want to go check that out.
He's been streaming every night this week with one of the other devs. I think he was streaming with Cora last night. So I don't know who he's streaming with tonight, but he's been doing coach streams like every night this week, which has been pretty cool. He's on the West Coast and I am old, so it's been too late for me to catch any of his streams, but I'm glad that he's doing them. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah. And
I caught some of it, but I'm on the West Coast also. But I teach really early in the morning, so
yeah,
I go to bed early too.
I have one other Concede actually, which is to the username Breadman on Battle.net. We've been friends on there a while, but due to recent events, he reached out to make sure I'm doing okay, and I really appreciated that. He's over in Australia, so not immediately impacted by my current events that I am keeping up with. So, yeah.
Well, I'm just going to concede to Deck Tech because it's his birthday today. So happy birthday, Deck Tech.
Happy birthday, Deck Tech. I will concede to Loic for the first time legend. Congratulations. That's always really exciting. Lime, thank you for keeping the Zarimi flag alive. Wicked, thank you for being our news/notes/stream host extraordinaire and basically doing like all the work for the notes this week. And Edel for editing a monster of an episode last week and also this week. I appreciate all of that.
Colossus-sized episodes, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But that is going to do it for us for this week. So until next time, keep calm and silence the infestors. And if you see us on ladder, concede.
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 All life must end. I yield for now. I concede. Well fought. I concede.
You win this one.
The victory is yours.
You have bested me.
I give up.
You win this one, friend. You win this time. I choose death.